Hey everybody, MGM here. Hey, if this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by and checking me out. Today's video has been inspired mostly from Discord threads, comments on videos and articles I've seen or read, and podcasts where I hear and read discussions pointing to the oversaturation of OSR games and the redundancy of the rules and tropes therein. Now, maybe it's a hot take saying that there's a ton of OSR games out there, but I don't really think so, but that's kind of up to you. But let's talk about nostalgia, the OSR, and the overabundance of choice. Before we start, however, let me take this moment to say that, as always, I'm not paid for any of this, nor have I been given anything to do this. Everything you see on the table is something that I have purchased myself, and any link below that you might see is never an affiliated link, it's just a link I'm doing to make it easy for you. But that being said, back to the topic at hand. Nostalgia. The longing for days gone by. Perhaps the revisiting of the hope and energy that comes with youth. Are you feeling nostalgic? Nostalgia is big business these days. I'm recording this in June 2025. And a quick look into pop culture media for about the last 10 years or more, and that's easy to see. With the new rise in popularity of tabletop role-playing games, the TTRPG community is not immune to the current love of all nostalgia. In the case of tabletop games, the nostalgia is mostly for the early tabletop gaming days, particularly original Dungeons & Dragons games from the 70s through the mid-80s. Think things like Zero Edition or First Edition, Holmes Basic, BX, BECMI, and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Keep in mind that the OSR also includes other old school games that weren't Dungeons & Dragons, but the abundance of Dungeons & Dragons clones and variations are plentiful, so they're kind of easy to pick at this one. In fact, we're looking at OSR games here mostly because it is easy. I mean, old school is in the name. Old school, Renaissance, or Revival being what OSR stands for, and old school itself is a term that evokes nostalgia. But we're also looking at OSR games because it's a very popular style of game, and that's evident in the abundance of choice that I'm talking about. Now, I'm actually a huge fan of the OSR and play those games often, including my current main campaign. Just throwing that out there. On top of that, I own at least a dozen physical copies of OSR books, depending on how you count it. It might be more than that, but 12 physical copies, and that's not counting the PDFs I have. So I have plenty of OSR games to go by when I'm talking about this stuff. Now, hey, here's a quick fact. The movement that we call the OSR, Old School Renaissance or Old School Revival, started in the early 2000s with Osric and basic fantasy role-playing game leading the way from what I've read and found myself. Now, the time frame we're focusing on here is mostly within that, and my goal here isn't for a deep delve into history. It's going to be very surface level here. So I just want to say that in the beginning. If you ever want me to go into deep history on something, I will, because I love history, but that's not the point here. I'm just surface level so we get the point, basically. Now, I do realize that a strict definition of the OSR community may be difficult to nail down, fully at least. Now, despite that, a big part of the OSR space is dedicated to different takes on the rule set and fantasy tropes from those aforementioned tabletop RPG nostalgic early days. Many creators from the early community of tabletop games, professional and the grognards and other homebrew guys alike, are still active today, and they're driving that nostalgia for that old game forward. With some newfound opportunities and perhaps inspiration more than anything, and aided by a prominent nostalgia culture, retro clones like Osric and Basic Fantasy RPG started to become quite popular, as they offer a less expensive, or if you're going by PDFs, even free alternative to Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons. Now, there are other retro clones than these two, but these are the two biggest and the ones that I really consider started the whole thing. Or at least we're considering that for the sake of this video. Speaking of Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons, however, between the early 2000s and now, they've made some of their own missteps that aided in the rise of the OSR, almost similar to how they created their own biggest competitor, but I digress. The point for this video is more that the missteps they made helped the OSR grow. Look into the OGL scandal, if you don't know what that is already, as a starting point, and there's tons of videos out there on all this stuff. Check out the multiple videos that Professor Dungeon Master has done, Dungeons and Discourse, and DM's Lair. They all cover parts of these scandalous things, so that's a good place to start anyway. Moving on though, inspired by the rise in popularity of these retro clone tabletop games and the time on their hands to do it, as I stated in my Golden Age video, every mega D&D fan of the old school game with a homebrew version of the world's most popular tabletop game of their own decided to write and publish that version. That's not to even mention how just about every dungeon tuber out there also wrote their own take on it and started Kickstarters and other ad campaigns, and you get the growing abundance that comes along with so many people trying to tap into a current trend. In this case, nostalgic Dungeons and Dragons. Now make no mistake, from minimalist rules light games all the way to the very crunchy and complex. If it looks and feels like a version of Dungeons and Dragons, it's probably available out there to you. And they're all competing to tap into your personal nostalgic taste for that old school game. The downsides to this, I feel, are obvious, but allow me to at least point some of the things that people have been saying out there as problems they see with it. An overwhelmingly oversaturated market of many similar games. The same tropes being used over and over again. The same or similar classics those games all seem to have in common. By classics here, I mean monsters, classes, spells, races, ancestries, rules, all the stuff like that that seems to be considered part of that classic game. That's what I mean by classics here. Now with that too, there's that perceived watering down of those very same classics. Now with all this, the result is a bit of choice overload. For those of us who like to explore new games, but especially for the new GM or player looking for a game, the noticeable abundance in the OSR game space can give an immense feeling of redundancy in the name of old school gaming, basically nostalgic gaming. Such redundancy can appear boring, old, or even outdated to many GMs or players, new or old alike, despite the current favoring of all things nostalgic. I'm not one to really hate on the classics here per se. They are classics for a reason after all. However, when it seems to be all you see, then all of these games become a swirled conglomeration of small tweaks that don't really seem to stand out much at all. On the other hand, however, many different perspectives on the same thing can create enough diversity to draw in new players, whether it is with interesting art and different aesthetics, or with rules specifically tailored for roleplay, exploration, and or tactical combat, or any combination or focus of the three pillars, really. And that goes double for experienced players who really know what they're already looking for and can discern that by looking at the games that they can see either with free PDFs or things like that. Also consider that nostalgia for those fantasy tropes that seem tired and repetitive can draw in new people to the hobby due to perceived shared experience of fantasy pop culture stories and icons. Also, a familiar dice and rule system can make it easy for people that already are familiar with that flagship game to our hobby to transition to other options. And for you capitalists out there, nostalgia sells, and following a trend is part of that whole capitalist thing, isn't it? Speaking of that capitalist thing, a side benefit is also to those in the third-party community. More games to write for gives more opportunities to grow their businesses or hobbies, and also gives them flexibility. This also affords an opportunity for more ideas that can avoid tropes or turn them on their head in unique and fun ways. More original ideas are able to reach the overall community, and that will attract more players and GMs also, but it will also stimulate the imaginations of people who are bored with those tropes and want to see something different. The beautiful thing is that new and different ideas are already out there. From games to supplements, the abundance of game materials means that you can find something different. Sometimes you just have to look and dig for it a little bit to demonstrate the hope that's out there. And to give a couple examples of what I'm talking about when it comes to newer ideas, or at least fresh ideas, the two game books that I have on the table illustrate this in my personal opinion. Now, I am focusing on these two, but they are not alone. I will let you know, however, I do have a showcase on each of these games. If you want to know more about them, then please check those out, where I tell you a lot more about why I like the game so much. But to give you a quick synopsis breakdown of some things that really stand out to me, the first book I will show here is Apotheosis. This is a game by Ian Tassin and Chris Nelson. Now, Apotheosis has what I personally feel is one of the best combat systems out there with their energy point and wound mechanic. I really, really love that system for combat. They also have great examples of original species in this book. Species, what they call races or ancestries in this book. And they have some really cool ones that I was attracted to almost immediately and just thought were really cool. Check out the showcase if you want to know more about that. But there's just cool stuff in here and the kind of originality that somebody like me really looks for. In fact, I was so impressed by it when I joined the Discord. I reached out to Ian right away and have had the opportunity to talk to him. And I even did a character creation video when he asked me to. So shout out to you, Ian. This is a great game and I love it. The second book here is Grit by Jeremy P., as many of you already know. Now, if you're tired of seeing Grit on my channel, I make no apologies because I totally love this game. Grit has a fast D12 mechanic for the main die. It utilizes a quick and easy NPC/monster stat system that I may just steal for every game that I run personally. And there's some original lineages and monsters that themselves are totally worth buying the book just for those alone. Grit is another one that when I found it, and I found it just because honestly the artwork drew me in, and when I joined the Discord, I reached out to Jeremy. We've had some great conversations since then, and I am now in play testing for the Galaxy's sci-fi version that's coming out, which I think is going to be just as awesome, if not a little more awesome than Grit Fantasy. So stay tuned for more on that. Now, I will say there are far more than only these two games doing something different. These two are just the ones that have really stood out in my experience, and I feel they're both criminally underrated. And I totally stand by that. So again, if you're looking for something a little different, check these games out. You might find exactly what you're looking for. But other than these, there is great content out there if you're looking for something different in the form of games and supplements. Have you come across or played an OSR style game or supplement that has something different from the norm? How'd you feel about it? Let us know in the comments below. Hey, nostalgia is great, but the current state of heightened nostalgia love is just like all trends, temporary. Allow me to take this opportunity to put a call out to you writers and creators, whether you're professionals or homebrew people in the tabletop space. Take a chance and put some originality into your game. There is good original stuff in print and PDF already for sure, but consider creating something new for yourself. Not only is this within the tradition of our hobby, if we're really talking nostalgia here, you might find it to be a lot of fun. Now, there's nothing wrong with putting new ideas right next to old ones, but let those new ideas take the center stage a little bit. If you combine the new and the old ideas together, both can shine brighter. In fact, consider that the original game creators were very influenced by pulp fiction stories. Now, if you're not familiar, the thing about pulp fiction stories is that they're kind of weird sometimes, and different genres of storytelling can easily be blended and mix and switch out without any warning in those stories. So if we really want to lean into the nostalgia of the early game, we should really consider the unpredictability and straight weirdness of pulp fiction and its ties to the origins of our hobby. I feel it would be more in line with what the current culture of nostalgia is sometimes missing and could bring about some newer ideas that continue to improve tabletop games as a whole. So don't be afraid to allow those creative energies to flow and consider putting it out there for people to see. The next great thing is but an idea away. Maybe it's yours. Hey guys, if you made it this far, then thank you so much. I recently broke 600 subscribers, and wow, I'm both humbled and very excited by that fact. This is easily over 3 times what I ever expected to really happen, so I really can't thank you enough for stopping by, watching, and subscribing. Allow me to take a moment to give a huge shout out to Ian, Chris, and Jeremy, and all the other game creators and designers and players out there bringing that new and awesome stuff to the table. Pun totally intended there, guys. Please continue what you do and push newer ideas forward. I want to give an equally huge shout out to the OSR and the old school style players out there, our grognards and our beloved torchbearers of the old school game. I still love all that stuff, and you're definitely valued and foundational members of the community, and you're very appreciated. You guys keep doing what you're doing too. And as always, I got to give a huge shout out to my players. If you guys are watching, I love how you guys like old school gaming just as much as newer games. And I'm excited to know that there are still plenty for us to try out. And I'm looking forward to all of it. My people, whether you like strict nostalgia or cutting edge newness, there is definitely increasing amounts of something for everyone out there, which is a good thing after all. Because the more people that join the hobby, the more people can learn to play for fun first. Thanks for watching, everybody.